Awakening the Ancient Ones. The Zaxarian warships descended upon Earth like metal predators, their obsidian hulls reflecting the terrified faces of humans who watched from below. It had been 3 years since first contact, 3 years since humanity learned they were not alone in the universe. But rather than the peaceful exchange of knowledge they had hoped for, they received conquest. Commander Vextal stood on the command deck of the Imperial flagship Dominion, his 4 eyes narrowed as he surveyed the blue-green world below. His scaled skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that signaled his satisfaction. "Primitive," he hissed, mandibles clicking in amusement. "Their weapons are toys. Their defense is paper. This conquest will be remembered as nothing more than a footnote in Zaxarian history." Behind him, Science Officer Relinera shifted uncomfortably. "Commander, there are anomalies in our scans of the humans." Anomalies. Vextal didn't bother turning around. They're carbon-based bipeds with barely 3,000 years of recorded history. What anomalies could possibly matter? Their genetic structure contains dormant sequences we cannot identify, and the deep scans of their planet show ruins, ancient ones, far older than their civilization should allow. Vextal waved a dismissive claw. Every species has evolutionary dead ends in their DNA, and every planet has the remains of those who came before. Focus on the subjugation protocols. What the Zaxarians couldn't know, what humanity itself had forgotten, was that Earth was not their birthplace. It was their sanctuary. Ilara Chen crouched in the rubble of what had once been downtown Shanghai, her dark eyes fixed on the Zaxarian processing center across the shattered street. 3 years of resistance had taught her patience. 3 years of watching humanity falter had taught her desperation. "Alpha Team in position," she whispered into her makeshift communicator. The device, cobbled together from pre-invasion tech and scavenged alien components, gave a static hiss in response. "Beta Team ready," came the reply. "We've got 5 minutes before the patrol circles back." Ilara nodded to herself. This raid was like dozens before it. Strike fast, grab supplies and intel, disappear before the Zaxarian response teams arrived. It wasn't winning the war, but it was keeping hope alive. Except today would be different. Today, everything would change. The first explosion went exactly as planned, a distraction at the north entrance. Zaxarian guards rushed toward the smoke, their chitinous armor gleaming under the harsh lights. Ilara and her team moved in from the south, silent shadows in the night. 30 seconds to breach," whispered Kai, her second in command, as he placed charges on the service entrance. That's when Ilara felt it, a pulsing sensation deep in her mind, like a dormant circuit suddenly receiving power. The world around her seemed to slow, details becoming sharper, sounds more distinct. She could hear the heartbeats of her team, the electronic hum of Zaxarian tech, even the subtle vibrations of the building's foundation. "Ilara." Kai's voice seemed distant. "You okay?" She blinked, trying to clear her head. "I'm fine, just focused." But she wasn't fine. Something was awakening inside her, something ancient and powerful that had been sleeping for millennia. The breach went smoothly, too smoothly. Ilara moved through the Zaxarian facility with an instinctive understanding of its layout, as if she'd seen it before. When a guard appeared around a corner, her body reacted before her mind could process the threat. Her hands moved in a blur, striking pressure points she shouldn't have known existed in alien physiology. The Zaxarian dropped without a sound. "Since when could you do that?" Kai stared at her, wide-eyed. Ilara looked at her hands in shock. I don't know." They reached the central data core, a towering column of pulsating alien technology. According to their intel, it contained information about Zaxarian supply routes and possibly their next targets for resource extraction. But as Ilara approached, the alien symbols on its surface began to shift, rearranging into patterns that, impossibly, she could read. "This isn't just a data core," she said, her voice hollow with shock. "It's a universal historical archive. And there's information about us, about humans. Her fingers moved across the alien interface with impossible precision, accessing files that should have been beyond her comprehension. Images flooded the screens around them. Star maps, ancient spacecraft, beings that looked almost human but not quite, with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed with inner light. The progenitors, she whispered, the term coming to her from nowhere. That's what they called us. Kai moved beside her, his face pale in the blue light of the screens. What are you talking about? Who called us what? Everyone. The entire galaxy. Ilara's voice trembled as memories that weren't hers cascaded through her mind. We weren't born on Earth, Kai. We ruled the stars. We were gods among the cosmos. The data told a story that history had forgotten. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, humanity, or what would become humanity, had been the dominant species in the galaxy. The progenitors, they were called. Masters of biotechnology and stellar engineering, creators of wonders that modern science could barely comprehend. They had seeded worlds, uplifted species, built empires that spanned entire galactic arms. And then they vanished, not through extinction or defeat, but by choice. The records were fragmented, but they spoke of a great retreat, a decision to step back from their role as the galaxy's shepherds and allow younger species to find their own path. They chose Earth, a pristine world far from the centers of galactic civilization, as their sanctuary. And they changed themselves, rewrote their own biology to become simpler, to forget their power and knowledge, to start again, innocent and unburdened by the weight of their cosmic legacy. But why? Kai asked, his voice small in the vast room. Why would we give up so much? Ilara shook her head, overwhelmed by the flood of information. I don't know, but I think. She gasped as another wave of awareness hit her. Something's happening. The Zaxarians found something they shouldn't have. They've been excavating sites around the planet, ancient progenitor outposts. And they've activated something. An alarm suddenly blared through the facility, but it wasn't because they'd been discovered. On the screens, emergency signals flashed from Zaxarian outposts worldwide. We need to go, Kai urged, pulling at her arm. Now. As they fled the facility, Ilara felt the change spreading within her, like a key turning in a lock that had been jammed for millennia. Genetic memories, dormant abilities, knowledge that no human should possess, all surging to the surface of her consciousness. She wasn't the only one. Across the planet, humans were experiencing the same awakening. The Zaxarian excavations had triggered failsafes built into human DNA, emergency protocols designed to restore the progenitors if the need ever arose. That need had come, and humanity was remembering what it once was. Commander Vextall paced the command deck of the Dominion, his bioluminescent patterns now flaring with alarm rather than satisfaction. Explain this, he snarled at the science officer, pointing at the displays showing chaos erupting across Earth. How are they resisting our neural suppressors? How are they disabling our weapons? Science officer Relnera's hands trembled as she brought up a genetic scan of a captured human. The dormant sequences I noted earlier, they're activating. Rapidly. The humans are changing. On the screen, the prisoner, a middle-aged man who had been docile just hours before, stood calmly in his cell despite the pain inducers operating at full capacity. His eyes glowed with an inner golden light, and when he spoke, his voice carried an authority that made even the Zaxarian guards step back. You should never have come here, the man said, looking directly into the camera. This world was hidden for a reason. We were hidden for a reason. With a casual gesture, he touched the cell wall. The advanced Zaxarian alloy, capable of withstanding energy weapons and explosive force, simply disintegrated under his fingertips. Alert all commands, Vextall ordered, his voice tight with the first stirrings of fear. Initiate Protocol Omega. Burn their cities. Scorch their lands. We must crush this rebellion before it spreads. But he was too late. The awakening had begun. Ilara stood on a hilltop outside the ruins of Shanghai, watching as golden light spread like wildfire through the refugee camps. Everywhere, humans were changing, not physically, but fundamentally. Knowledge was returning. Power was flowing back into vessels that had been empty for countless generations. "It's happening all over," Kai said, joining her with a tablet displaying communications from resistance cells worldwide. "People are remembering, knowing things, doing things. The Zaxarians are pulling back, consolidating their forces around their major installations." Ilara nodded, her mind now clear and focused in a way she'd never experienced before. The fragmented memories were coalescing into understanding. "They're afraid," she said, "and they should be." In the distance, a Zaxarian strike ship roared overhead, weapons charging. But before it could fire, a dozen humans looked up, their eyes glowing golden. They didn't speak, didn't coordinate. They simply raised their hands in unison. The ship stopped in midair, suspended by nothing visible. Then, slowly, its metallic hull began to warp and twist as if being reshaped by invisible hands. In moments, it had transformed into a spherical object that gently floated down to the ground. "How?" Kai whispered, awestruck. "Molecular manipulation," Ilara explained, the knowledge coming to her naturally. "The progenitors. We developed it eons ago. It's not technology. It's understanding. Seeing the building blocks of reality and knowing how to rearrange them." She turned to face the gathered survivors, hundreds of confused, frightened humans whose lives had been shattered by invasion and who were now experiencing an awakening beyond comprehension. "We forgot who we were," she called out, her voice carrying with new authority. "We chose to forget, to live simple lives, to grow and learn and evolve naturally without the burden of what we once were." She gestured toward the transformed Zaxarian ship. "But now we must remember, not just for ourselves, but for every species in the galaxy who will suffer under conquerors like the Zaxarians." Around her, humans nodded, their eyes beginning to glow with the same golden light as understanding spread through the collective consciousness that was reawakening after thousands of years of slumber. "We were giants once," she continued, feeling the truth of her words in her bones. "We walked among the stars not as conquerors, but as guardians and creators. And now we must become giants again." As the sun set on the first day of humanity's awakening, Ilara felt the stirring of something vast and ancient within the planet itself. Earth had been more than just a sanctuary. It had been a cocoon, a place for the progenitors to sleep and dream and be reborn. And now, the giants were awake. The reckoning of stars. 6 months after the awakening began, Earth was unrecognizable. The Zaxarians had withdrawn to fortified positions around their largest installations, their once overwhelming technological advantage now meaningless against humans who could manipulate matter with a thought. Where cities had been reduced to rubble, new structures rose, not built with hands and tools, but grown from the earth itself, living architecture that pulsed with organic energy. In what had once been the Sahara Desert, an ancient installation had emerged from beneath the sands, a massive circular structure with spires that reached toward the heavens. It was here that the newly formed Council of Awakened gathered, the most powerful of those who had reclaimed their progenitor abilities. Ilara stood at the center of the council chamber, her mind connected to a web of consciousness that spanned the globe. Through this network, humanity was relearning its history, sharing knowledge, coordinating their defense, and, increasingly, planning their counterattack. "The Zaxarian fleet has withdrawn to the dark side of the moon," she reported, projecting images into the minds of the assembled leaders. "They're calling for reinforcements from across their empire." Marcus Way, once a university physics professor and now keeper of the reawakened knowledge of stellar mechanics, frowned. "They'll return with a force 10 times what we faced before. Their entire empire will come." "Let them come," said Aliyah Okafor, her dark skin now constantly shimmering with subtle golden energy. Before the invasion, she had been a nurse. Now she was mistress of molecular biology, capable of healing wounds with a touch or reshaping organic matter at will. We grow stronger every day. More of our people awaken hourly. Ilara nodded in agreement, but caution tempered her confidence. We're still remembering, still learning. Not all humans have awakened yet. And there's something else. She hesitated, then shared an image from deep space. Massive fleet movements, not just Zaxarian ships, but vessels from a dozen different species. The galaxy has noticed our awakening, she continued. The Zaxarians have spread the word. Some are coming in fear, others in hope. The progenitors have returned, and the stars are holding their breath. The council fell silent, contemplating the implications. Humanity had withdrawn from the galactic stage millennia ago. Their return would reshape the cosmic order. Not everyone would welcome that. We need to access the Nexus, Ilara finally said. It's the only way we'll remember enough. Fast enough. Murmurs swept through the council. The Nexus, a planetary mind core buried at Earth's center, containing the sum total of progenitor knowledge and history. According to the fragments they'd recovered, it had been placed in stasis along with humanity itself, waiting for the day when the progenitors might need to fully awaken. Activating the Nexus could trigger chain reactions we're not prepared for, Marcus warned. Planetary systems we still don't understand. If we don't, Alaya countered, we face the combined might of species who've had thousands of years to develop while we slept. Forgotten or not, we were once the greatest power in the galaxy. Everyone out there knows that. They'll strike before we fully awaken if they can. Ilara closed her eyes, reaching deep into the genetic memories that continued to surface. The Nexus was meant for this exact scenario. If the progenitors, if we ever needed to rapidly restore ourselves, the Nexus would provide the means. The decision, when it came, was unanimous. The time for caution had passed. Humanity needed to remember. Emperor Zax Krell received the reports with growing dread. 3 centuries of Zaxarian expansion, dozens of species subjugated, hundreds of worlds conquered, all built on a foundation of historical lies. "Show me again," he commanded, his voice barely a whisper. The holographic display activated, showing images transmitted from Earth, humans manipulating matter at the molecular level, communicating telepathically, even altering the local properties of space-time. Abilities no species should possess without technology. Abilities that, according to ancient warnings passed down through generations of Zaxarian rulers, belong to only one race. "The Cedars have awakened," whispered his high priest, using the Zaxarian term for the progenitors. "The Ancient Ones return." The Emperor hissed in frustration. They were myths, tales to frighten hatchlings. "No, my Emperor." The priest's voice was solemn. "They were history, history we chose to forget, history all spacefaring races agreed to obscure." According to the priest, after the progenitors withdrew from galactic affairs, the remaining species had made a pact to erase the memory of humanity's true nature from the historical record, to depict them as primitive newcomers should they ever reemerge. Not out of malice, but fear. Fear of what might happen if the progenitors remembered their power too quickly. "We broke the covenant," the priest continued. "We attacked their sanctuary world. And now they will remember not just who they were, but what was done to ensure they forgot." Emperor Zax Krell rose from his throne, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "Send word to the coalition. Invoke the extinction protocols. We must strike now, with everything we have, before they fully awaken. And if we fail..." The Emperor turned away. "Then the age of the younger races ends, and the reign of the progenitors begins anew." Deep beneath Earth's surface, Ilara stood before the Nexus. The chamber was vast, a perfect sphere lined with crystalline structures that hummed with dormant energy. At its center floated a pulsating orb of golden light, the collected consciousness and knowledge of the progenitor civilization at its height. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked, standing beside her with a small group of the most powerful awakened humans. Ilara nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at her. The genetic memories that had surfaced so far had shown her wonders and terrors beyond imagination. Planets reshaped according to progenitor will, stars harvested for energy, species uplifted from primitive forms to sentience. The power they once wielded was godlike, and with that power had come responsibility, and eventually, weariness. "We chose to forget for a reason," she said softly. "What if that reason still stands?" Alia placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll remember that too, and we'll choose our path forward together." Taking a deep breath, Ilara stepped toward the Nexus. As she approached, tendrils of golden energy reached out to her, responding to her progenitor DNA. The others formed a circle around her, joining hands to create a circuit of consciousness through which the knowledge could flow. When Ilara touched the Nexus, light exploded through the chamber. Knowledge, memory, history, all flooded into her mind and through her to the others, and from them to the awakened humans across the planet. In an instant, humanity remembered. They remembered how they had evolved on a world long destroyed, how they had reached for the stars not with crude rockets but with minds that could bend reality itself. They remembered seeding 100 worlds with life, guiding the evolution of dozens of sentient species, building a galactic community based on knowledge and harmony. And they remembered why they had chosen to forget. Power had corrupted some among them. A faction of progenitors had begun to see themselves as gods, demanding worship from the younger races. Civil war erupted among the progenitors themselves, a war that devastated thousands of worlds and nearly tore the galaxy apart. In the aftermath, the remaining progenitors made their choice. They would withdraw, start anew, evolve once more from simplicity to complexity, but with safeguards. The dormant abilities, the genetic memories, all designed to remain inactive unless humanity truly needed them, unless they faced extinction. As the memories settled, Ilara gasped, stumbling back from the Nexus. The others caught her, their eyes wide with the weight of what they now knew. "They're coming," she said, her voice distant. "All of them, not just the Zaxarians. Every spacefaring race in the Coalition. They think they're coming to finish what the Zaxarians started." But something else had awakened with the Nexus, something the sleeping progenitors had left behind as their final defense. Earth itself was stirring. The Coalition Armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, over 10,000 ships representing 27 spacefaring species. At its center flew the Zaxarian dreadnought Inevitable Dominion, carrying Emperor Zax Krell himself. "Status report," the Emperor demanded, his 4 eyes fixed on the viewscreen showing the blue-green world ahead. "No defensive fleet detected," his admiral reported. "Minimal orbital infrastructure. They've made no attempt to intercept or communicate." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in something like relief. Perhaps they had acted in time. Perhaps the progenitors hadn't fully awakened after all. "Move into bombardment range," he ordered. "Prepare planet killer weapons. We will sterilize the surface in one strike." As the fleet moved forward, sensors began to register anomalies. Strange energy readings emanated from Earth's surface, patterns that defied conventional physics. The Moon, Earth's natural satellite, began to emit similar energies. Gravitational fluctuations detected. A science officer reported, voice rising in alarm. The planet's masses, changing. Before their eyes, Earth began to transform. The oceans receded, drawn beneath the surface. The continents shifted, plates of land moving like pieces of a puzzle rearranging themselves. And from the planet's equator, massive structures emerged, not buildings, but parts of a whole, segments of what could only be described as a planetary mechanism. "The sanctuary was never just a world," whispered the high priest, watching in awe. "It was a vessel." Earth was awakening, not just the humans upon it, but the planet itself. A progenitor world ship, disguised for thousands of years as a natural planet, now reconfiguring into its true form. The Emperor struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. Open fire. Now. Before. He never finished his command. A pulse of golden energy swept out from Earth, passing through the coalition fleet harmlessly, but freezing every system in its path. Ships hung motionless, weapons powerless, engines silent. And then a voice spoke, not through communication channels, but directly into the minds of every being in the fleet. It was Ilara's voice, but layered with countless others, the collective consciousness of awakened humanity. "We remember," the voice said simply. "We remember what we were, what you are, what was done, and why." On the command deck of the inevitable Dominion, screens activated, showing images from across Earth. Humans standing amid the transformed landscape, their eyes glowing with golden light. The planetary mechanism, now fully emerged, pulsing with energy that could reshape reality itself. "You fear our return," the voice continued. "You fear we will reclaim our place as the dominant force in the galaxy, that we will subjugate or destroy you as you sought to do to us." Emperor Zax Krell found his voice at last. "The progenitors nearly destroyed the galaxy once. We could not risk it happening again." "No," the voice acknowledged. "You could not. But neither can we risk what the younger races have become in our absence. Conquerors, enslavers, destroyers of worlds." The energy pulse that had frozen the fleet suddenly reversed, and the ships found themselves being gently pushed back, moved away from Earth by an irresistible force. "We will not reclaim our empire," the voice declared. "That time has passed. But neither will we allow the galaxy to continue on its current path. The covenant between species has been broken. A new one must be forged." From Earth's surface, golden spheres of energy launched upward, thousands of them, each containing a handful of awakened humans. They streaked past the coalition fleet, heading outward toward the stars. "We will not rule," the voice promised, "but we will guide. We will remember what it means to be progenitors, not gods, not conquerors, but caretakers, guardians of balance and life." Emperor Zax Krell watched helplessly as the golden spheres vanished into hyperspace, bound for worlds across the galaxy. He understood then what was happening. The progenitors would not destroy the coalition. They would transform it from within. "Return to your homeworlds," the voice commanded. "Tell your people what you have witnessed. In time, we will come to you, not with weapons, but with knowledge. Not with demands, but with offers of cooperation. The age of conquest ends today." As the coalition fleet regained control of their ships, they found themselves with no choice but to comply. Against the power of a fully awakened Earth, resistance was not merely futile, it was unimaginable. 1 year later, Ilara stood on the observation deck of what had once been Miti Everest, now transformed into a spire that reached to the edge of space. Below her stretched the transformed Earth, no longer just a planet, but a living symbol of progenitor rebirth. "The Andromeda mission reports success," Kai said, joining her at the railing. Like all humans who had survived the awakening, he now bore the subtle golden glow of activated progenitor DNA. 50 worlds have accepted guidance teams. Even the Zaxarians are cooperating, albeit reluctantly. Ilara nodded, gazing up at the stars. "And the deep probes. They've confirmed what the Nexus told us. There are others out there, beyond our galaxy. Old enemies, old friends, some who remember us, some who never knew us. The universe is bigger than even the progenitors explored fully." "Then we have much work to do," she said, smiling slightly, "and much to learn." The choice to awaken had been forced upon them by the Zaxarian invasion, but the choice of what to do with that awakening was theirs alone. They would not repeat the mistakes of their ancestors. They would not become gods demanding worship or tyrants enforcing their will. They would be what the progenitors were always meant to be, guardians of life in all its forms, stewards of a universe too vast and complex for any single species to rule. "We slept," Ilara said, looking out at the transformed world below. "We forgot. We became something new. And in doing so, perhaps we became what we always should have been." Around them, Earth continued its transformation, not into a weapon or a throne from which to rule the galaxy, but into a beacon, a light to guide the way forward for all species. The progenitors had returned. But this time, they returned not as conquerors of the galaxy, but as its hopeful caretakers. And the stars welcomed them home.